How are you
Hi.
doing?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Excited to be connected today.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, so am I. And I'm super keen to hear more about is it Nyoka Design Labs? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
We can say Nyoka. I know a lot of
Nyoka.
people say Nyoka, but Nyoka.
Nyoka. Okay. Nyoka. No, I appreciate that. I like to know the proper pronunciation of everyone's startups and what they're working on. I know that the name Nyoka, is that correct now?
Yeah.
Nyoka? Okay. Um, has a really special meaning. So I'd love to get into that later about why you chose this name. But in the meantime, welcome. And also pronouncing your name, is it Yamila or Yamila or
You got it the first time. You can say
Yamila?
Yamila.
Yamila
Yeah.
Franco. Okay,
Thank you for
perfect.
asking.
Of course, yes. No, not a problem. And I'm really excited to have you here. For those who aren't familiar, we have these founder chats once per week. And it kind of started in April when I was reaching out to the community and seeing what people needed, how we could support through COVID. And a big part of it was honestly people saying they're having a difficult time connecting. I mean, a lot of especially early stage startups have a difficult time connecting, getting their name out and visibility to begin with. And we're like, hey, this is something we can actually help with. So launched it and have been inviting founders from the community to come. And I first met Yamila as an audience member at, I believe it was a Locelle event. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Well, yeah, actually, it was one event first. Then it was at a
Yes.
competition.
Yes, at the competition, because I was the pitch mentor at CXC, which you won, which is really exciting.
Thank you. I
Fantastic.
am
So,
really excited.
oh yeah, no, and I'd love to hear what's kind of come out of that as well. So essentially, for everyone who's joining us now, or if you're joining us on IGTV or YouTube later, how this will go for the next kind of 30 minutes is we're going to have a nice casual conversation, kind of a facilitated interview style conversation, whatever you want to call it. And for those who are joining us in the audience, please do say hi and ask questions and get involved. And it doesn't have to just be me asking the questions. So do jump in here as well. And so, Yamila, really excited to have you here. You're the co-founder and CFO of Nyoka Design Labs, I believe, and you're joining us here on your Instagram channel. But also, for those who want to know more about Nyoka, go to www.lightbynyoka.com, and that's Nyoka, Nyoka.
Mhm.
So, I have a little one-liner about what it exactly is that you do, but I'm actually just going to hand over the reins right from the start because I think it's really interesting everything you're doing and why you're doing it and kind of your origin story and all these different pieces. So I'd love to invite you now, Yamila, to jump in and tell people what is Nyoka Design Lab, and then we'll get into all the other bits and pieces.
Cool. Thank you so much for that intro. I do have to say, quick disclaimer. I'm in the middle of a storm, even though it seems sunny. There is a power outage everywhere, and I'm
Oh,
not driving. So,
okay.
sorry.
All right.
But
Oh,
if you,
honestly, I didn't even notice you were in the car.
okay, some people worry. I'm like, no, I'm not driving. I'm just taking shelter and taking that out here, which is better than
Yeah.
anywhere
Oh,
else at this
right.
moment.
Where are you?
Right now, I'm in Nanaimo.
Okay.
So it's interesting. I drove this morning to the ferry. The ferry have been canceled.
All
Our
right.
office in Courtney, there's a power outage over there. I don't have internet in the house. Everything is shut down. I'm just like, let's just do it right here.
Thank you for
Okay.
making this work. I really appreciate it. I was just talking to a woman in Toronto, and her power cut out at the exact same time. So I was wondering. I thought you were on the West Coast, but was curious about all these power outages in Canada that are going on.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So stay safe. Stay
Thank
as warm as possible, and let us know more about Nyoka. Nyoka,
Yeah,
yes.
awesome. So there's two stories that go in here. There's my
Mhm.
co-founder Paige, who started working with Nyoka even before we were incorporated,
Okay.
even before we had the vision of turning this into a company or a social enterprise.
Yeah.
And then there's my story of also how I came to know Paige and how we started working together.
Hmm.
So I think I want to start with a little bit with Paige's story because
Okay.
Paige is she's one of my inspirations. Paige is an environmental activist. She works super hard in community in terms of, when you think about hardcore, it's somebody who is on top of policies, working with
Yeah.
organizations, grassroots activism. That's Paige. And so
Right.
As a
She's like
result, she
deep in it,
also,
yeah, and gets
yeah,
it.
very deeply rooted in her values. And so,
Mm-hmm.
as part of her university degree, she actually went into microbiology, which
Right.
is where she started learning about the soil microbiome, health, and so many other things like permaculture design as well. And like many people on the West Coast, she definitely loved to also celebrate and also go to music festivals. And I'm just going to stop 1 second because, as you know, because we're trapped in the middle of a storm, I have my partner with me here.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome. So basically, with being in the music festival scene, Paige actually noticed that there was a lot of plastic waste being
Mm-hmm.
produced.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this was just leftovers after all these music festivals. And so I think that at that point I wasn't really engaged with it, but Paige in her, creative and innovative mind, the question arises for like many scientists, for many entrepreneurs is how can you solve this problem?
Yeah.
Especially because from what I've understood, the festival community and what I've experienced, there are people who really care, especially when you go
Absolutely.
to festivals like Shambhala or any other
Burning
ones that
Man.
are more
Mm-hmm.
geared towards that environmental
Mm-hmm.
well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, a lot of people don't have a choice because of the way products are made.
Right.
So at least if I use a plastic container, well, maybe I can recycle it. And even then, it doesn't solve the problem, but it delays the problem of having to deal with the plastic. And when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to glow sticks, you couldn't really recycle them because of the toxic chemicals that were inside. You also
Yes.
couldn't, in theory, you shouldn't be throwing them out in the landfill because ultimately they will be leaking out into the
Right.
environment. So it was a lose-lose situation. And then because of also the health implications, Paige ended up getting in touch with even places that would recycle, and they couldn't recycle glow sticks. So it was just a no way of solving this except
Right.
getting rid of them.
Yeah.
And so
Or
out of
creating
that,
something
and
totally new.
exactly, and it's not even about changing people's behavior. Is right now we just don't have a better alternative yet.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Mm-hmm.
we create, and how can we create a better alternative? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where Paige took on the knowledge from many different, basically her experience with microbiology, with biotech, and also with permaculture design, which became a huge beast for a lot of people. Permaculture design, I like to see it as a way of creating products that are in alignment with nature, that
Mm.
instead of taking from the environment are giving back to the environment, products that are respectful, that are inclusive. And that's one way of translating it, but there's so
Right.
much literature with that. And
Oh,
so in summary, yeah,
sorry. No, I'm just really interested by that because I've only known about permaculture with respect to gardening specifically. So I never heard about permaculture design when we're talking about products. I think that's really interesting. If you have any resources, I heard you say in summary, so I'll get back to the in summary. But do you have resources for anyone who wants to learn more about permaculture design?
absolutely. You know what? Paige is actually talking in a conference this upcoming
Hmm.
weekend.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
all going to be about that.
perfect.
So the first thing would be going and hearing Paige talk about it. And the second part is in our website. We're
Okay.
in the process of building a suite of resources and blogs and as well as educational materials that will
Okay.
be geared towards everybody, but also
Right.
towards educators that want to implement this, maybe in the classroom, or parents and you want to implement this with your kids and
Mm.
you want to bring those principles into your life. So we're actually
Mm.
working on launching that. But we have
Very
blogs also
cool.
that we posted.
Okay,
And
amazing. All right.
yeah,
Back to your story. Yes, thank you for
well,
that.
that's the whole thing and how Paige started and looking at the Nyoka Light one, which then
Mm-hmm.
now became the world's first eco-friendly glow stick or earth-friendly glow stick. And so for
Mm-hmm.
me, I grew up in the Dominican Republic, lived there my whole life. I was very much a scientist, very much activist differently because we're very community driven. We're
Right.
always engaging with the community, always coming up with ideas and projects. And thanks to my community as well, I was able to get a scholarship, which took me to UVic. And
Right.
then at UVic was where I met Paige at the finals of a knowledge mobilization series. And we were both finalists from basically doing science communications in a
Mm-hmm.
contest as
Mm-hmm.
part of the Idea Fest at UVic.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw her idea. She presented on the light one alone. And I was super attracted. I was super interested. I was like, that is awesome. It was just like, it was like, that is awesome. We
Yeah.
have to work on this together.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started. And I approached and I was like, I can help with whatever it takes. But at that moment, again, we didn't necessarily have a business plan. We didn't have any, it wasn't even the idea of turning it into a business. It was
Right.
just, this is really cool. Maybe we can, have greater impact, or we can bring this to the Dominican Republic. And
Mm.
then we ended up going to Project Zero Incubator Program, which was an incubator program for businesses that are following a circular economy model.
Okay.
And then circular economy, I feel a lot of people don't know about this either, because we're still used to the linear type of economy that we live with, where,
Right.
I mean, if you think about even the food we buy from the supermarket, there is plastic packaging. What happens with that? You throw it out. It's a linear process. It gets made, you take it, you throw it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But circular economy would
And the
be,
light wand was like what's
yeah,
like the worst kind of, it sounds like it's the worst kind of um what am I trying to say? Example, the worst kind of example of linear economy was that
yeah, with
the
glow
glow
sticks,
stick. Yeah.
literally, yeah. And so the light one was also pulling from that. And it didn't just translate to the light one, but how we wanted to do business,
Mm-hmm.
where when we look at the production, the design, can we reduce waste? Can we turn that waste into other resources to
Mm-hmm.
make more products, so that instead of adding more waste to the planet, we are potentially even, reducing or acting on climate change,
Right.
or promoting healthy relationships with the land, promoting innovation as a way of solving problems, etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that whole thing then turning to us, then going to League of Innovators, then also starting to really look at how this could have an impact, but also on the field of sustainability in terms of business. How can we
Mm-hmm.
build something that can have a long lasting impact in the world?
Yeah.
And that's
Amazing.
where we've evolved now.
Yeah. Okay. Alessandra, I'm seeing some people chatting in here talking about permaculture, and that's very interesting. And I've never heard about permaculture design, so thank you for those resources. Everyone, check out lightbynyoka.com to see the blog and all the resources there. And then, Alessandra, what are we talking about? So this is Yamila Franco, who is the co-founder and CFO of Nyoka Design Labs. So she was just talking about kind of their flagship or first product, which is their light wand, is kind of the circular economy version, like the way a way of designing glow sticks called the light wand. A way of designing glow sticks. They're actually going to be either not bad for the environment or potentially good for the environment. It sounds like, in terms of the
Yeah.
production, and also having a way to be recycled. Are they going to be recyclable, or what does that look like?
So right now they're reusable.
Okay.
And what we're also building in is a system where we can potentially recover them and use
Okay.
those materials to either make more light
Okay.
ones, or to implement them in other fields. So like, can we
Right.
make art with this? Can we do other projects with this? So it's
Cool.
extending the life of the product.
Yeah.
And something that we include in that also expands to packaging, and how we ship our products, how we package. And in fact, just in
Mm-hmm.
packaging, they're like, just the cost of recovering packaging per year can go to over $150 billion,
Mm-hmm.
just from recovering plastic from the oceans or rivers.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't even account for the loss of biodiversity,
Mm-hmm.
the loss in tourism and fisheries management. And so for us, we go completely plastic free with our packaging,
Yeah.
with the products that go inside. We use biochar as well as a desiccant, and we're looking at it as a novel way of implementing something that can capture carbon. So biochar is produced in a
Right.
way that also reduces our carbon footprint
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
actually improves it. So you were totally right when we look at having a positive impact. It's not
Yeah.
just being carbon neutral. It's about advancing even those UN Sustainable Development Goals,
Right.
climate
Oh,
action.
yeah. Amazing. Okay. And so the light wand itself, you did a Kickstarter for, is that correct?
Yeah,
How did
we
that
did.
go?
It was successful. It ended up being crazy. It was the first time we did a Kickstarter. And at that moment, because our main office is actually in Courtney,
Right.
and at that moment I was living in Victoria as well, so we were working remotely. This was right before the coronavirus pandemic
Mm-hmm.
started.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did a limited run. We just did 100 light ones of the product,
Yeah.
and it was successful. Like, just in 48 hours, I think we had gone over half of the light ones themselves.
Incredible.
And the support was huge from the community, which also made us realize, like, oh wow, people are really responding well to this. People care. The And because of that, we were able to connect with way other community members and organizations that are also actively promoting and advancing this type of businesses.
Right. Okay. So if this is your first product, sounds like everyone loves it. What does kind of the, sorry, my cat is going crazy. I apologize for the sounds she's making, if you can hear that. But so what is the vision for Nyoka Design Labs then? Like what is the vision for what does the next steps look for the light wand, but also for the company at large?
Yeah, so I like to say we started with the idea of just the glow stick. But when
Mm-hmm.
we realized that the same principles that we were implementing for this product, that circular economy, permaculture, co-creation, working with different communities, working across cultures, we realized that that could be a framework that we can implement to build
Mm-hmm.
other products, but that we can also teach people so they can create as well. So
Right.
that's when our vision for a design labs came up as well, where we thought we don't just want to be the ones creating products. We want to be able to expand Nyoka to be a platform that people can use to
Right.
innovate and solve problems all across the world. Of course, as long as they fall under this field of advancing sustainable solutions, advancing sustainable materials, innovation, infrastructure design, etc., we want to be able to support people, whether it is through capacity building or through just opening our doors and be let's create
Mm.
together. And so it's really more about an open source knowledge platform that we want to share and that we want to also build this culture around and teach other businesses that this is a way of doing businesses and this is a way of having a sustainable model for social enterprises.
I love that. And see, I was hearing you say earlier that the way you met Paige was because you were both interested in science communications, which it sounds like is similar to knowledge translation, essentially, correct? Or
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, yeah, okay. When I was a scientist myself back in university, that was something that I was really attracted to. Is how do we make science digestible and accessible? How do we talk about it? How do we make it sexy? Or put it in front of the right people and magic happens kind of thing. But it's just like science was not getting translated in a way that like the public could actually consume and do something with it. So it sounds like to me kind of that um, where you started, you're still kind of bringing that forward and still kind of talking about communications and education and how do we kind of make this this kind of work like the people listening here today saying I've never heard of permaculture design. Maybe they're business owners, maybe they know business owners. So how do we help other businesses and kind of like translate and help kind of unpack what those words mean and what circular economy means and how you can um, bake that into your own work that you do. And I know that something that you like to talk about is how businesses can start to be more aligned with long-term sustainability. And so I'd love to hear your ideas. And I feel like it's a perfect segue talking about this platform you want to create in this kind of like knowledge sharing space from what I'm understanding. And so what would be something that if there were people who were going to join Nyoka Design Labs in the future, what is something that they might learn? Like let's talk about that a little bit in terms of um, if I want my business to be more sustainable, I don't know how to get there. Um, how would you kind of talk me through that a bit?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'll tell you something that came up when you were speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually also did science. I did biology in university,
Right. I was health
and
science, so yeah. Mm.
I did an honors in bio, but I ended up working in science education. So
Right.
for my whole life, even through co-op mostly, I was working with youth and I was doing lesson plans and workshops and translating science into
Yeah.
more digestible terms.
Yeah.
So that was super fun. And that's something that we continue doing with Nyoka as well.
Yeah.
And that's why we expanded towards education.
Yeah.
And you'll see that we're going to be launching something new in that field too soon coming up.
Okay. Okay.
But that ties to how can you implement that sustainability aspect into your business. And the first thing I realized is a lot of that has to come with our ways of learning, of being and working. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it just means that we have to look at things from a different angle. So when you have already maybe an established business, let's say you're not even starting, you have a team. Usually what I've seen happens is that people in management or the CEO, they might come and say, well, we value diversity, we value sustainability,
Mm-hmm.
these are we're going to be doing this, and then the rest of the team doesn't understand that language.
Right.
They
Mm-hmm.
don't understand where this vision, where these values
Yeah.
are coming from. So the first thing I have to say is that we have to switch the approach when we
Right.
want to implement sustainability, and it has to be a whole team effort. And so whether that is, we start the conversation first by identifying what are those values that our team brings.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And the shared language around those values.
yeah, and see how
Right.
they communicate those values, because you want your
Yeah.
team to also understand that. Now, if
Right.
you're starting a business and you're in that recruitment stage where now you're going to expand, you have to also facilitate that in a way where now you're co-creating. That's a word I really like to use, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not just me giving you a piece of paper and say, do you agree with this or not? But is, let's find a middle ground,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, I want people to feel ownership. And I want people, apart from me, I want them to champion those initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
So by just asking people in the team or in the business, you're able to realize maybe there's people who already value sustainability and practice it in so many different ways. And when
Mm-hmm.
I mean sustainability now, I mean to the on the environmental side. And
Right.
maybe what you realize is that because they bring that different perspective, maybe you can bring them into your product design team so that
Right.
they bring that whole sustainability lens and actually inform the team in how your products could be more inclusive or creative with those people in mind,
Mm-hmm.
or with those principles in mind, because it is a process. It's not like you're going to show up one day. And then maybe it also means that if nobody in your team values that, it might just mean that you need to expand your team to include more people that
Right.
bring those different values. And
Right.
I think that values sometimes are very much linked to culture as well.
Right.
For me, I value family, but it's because I was really pretty much raised in a culture that is all family oriented.
Yeah.
Like, we don't move out of our houses to go to university. You move out
Right.
maybe when you get married. If not, you keep living with your parents and with your
Yeah.
grandparents.
Yeah.
So
So understanding also like the different cultures on your team in this co-creation and what different lenses we can bring. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I love that. I love that co-creation terminology as well. I'm hearing it a lot more lately, and I think it's such an interesting concept, and I feel like it explains like the kind of like intense work togetherness, you know,
yeah. I
like
think we need to shift. It's not that, I saw something and I was reading. It's not that something was created for everyone, because sometimes creating something for everyone is exclusive on its own.
yeah.
But it was that it was created with that person in mind, or by bringing that person to the table as well.
Mm,
And that's where I think we need to shift, where a lot of times, even as like founders, CEOs, I think there's this kind of like pressure in the air for us to know everything and
right.
for us to lead the company and be like making decisions. But what if we were to shift? Like, first of all, who said that we needed to operate in that way?
Mm,
And second, can we shift our perspectives to then pass on the power or the perceived power to other people in the team, so they also take more leadership roles?
mm,
And that's even a whole shift in the culture of your company.
yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you love to have more people that treated your business as if it was also their own? Because it is their own. They're part of the team, right?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that also ties to sustainability. Sustainability might not just be linked to how, you help the environment, but it's how you build relationships that are long
Mm,
lasting, that are going to have impact across generations, and
mm,
where people are learning, because that's also going to just translate to their communities, to how they live, to how they operate, etc.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like I could talk about this forever with you. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I know that there's so much more that we could talk about, but also I'm aware of the time. So I'm not going to like dig in too much. And I feel like we should just set up something to talk to you about this at another time as well and get more, glean more of all of your thoughts. I think it's really interesting. So thank you so much for sharing. So something back to Nyoka Designs. I would be curious about. We touched a little bit on what your past year has looked like. We've looked at your vision a little bit, but I would be curious if you would be willing to share a little bit more about your journey as an entrepreneur at Nyoka. And I know you've kind of talked about a little bit in our previous conversation the mistakes that have been made and what kind of lessons learned. Because I like to always incorporate like what kind of tips would you give your peer entrepreneurs, especially those kind of starting out, which are usually based on our own lessons and mistakes that we've made. So I'd be curious about what's some of that journey looked at like, some of those mistakes, and what kind of tips you would pass along.
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I feel we don't really talk about the
Yeah,
mistakes, or we don't talk about the hard moments.
yeah,
And when we're talking right now, but one of my biggest challenges as an entrepreneur has been just finding this fake balance of how do you take care of your health, how do you take care of your team, how do you bring
Mm-hmm.
that to the team, etc. And a lot of my work has shifted towards working with building up our team
Yeah.
recently, and also developing that team culture,
Mm-hmm.
because I understand, like, for us, especially as women, we have so much more responsibilities that come to mind. Like, if I one of the reasons I'm able to work so much and be quote unquote successful is because I have a partner that is extremely supportive.
Same.
However, when we have conversations about having a family, we have to think about how we set up the business in a way that would allow even
Mm-hmm.
me to step back. And so
Mm-hmm.
that takes me to the mistakes that I've done, where when I started the business, it's so weird. I feel like it's something that happens to women. I didn't value the work that I was doing as much as it deserved. I
Right.
was so often putting myself down and stretching myself so thin
Mm-hmm.
because I was really trying to please everybody, jumping into every opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And what I came to realize is that when you're bringing something that's different, something that might be maybe not the product, but if you're a disruptive person, and usually you're going to be labeled as disruptive if you're doing anything that's different from what everybody else is doing,
Right.
right? You're going to find people that will support you, people who will pull you down. And something I've noticed, especially comparing myself to other entrepreneurs, is that I used to really doubt myself. And then that
Mm.
doubt actually translated to how I was running my business,
Right.
where I just will just always set myself back like 5 to 10 steps. And
Yeah.
so I want to give clear examples where I'd be going to the incubator or accelerator sessions. And because sometimes I will feel that I wasn't at a position where I could take advantage of a lawyer, or like,
Mm.
oh, we're too early, we're too soon to even be thinking about our share structure or about this or about that. I just hadn't
Mm.
realized how much power I truly had in my hands, where I could just make things happen. I didn't need to wait to be in a position where somebody else could say that we were ready to receive investment, or that we
Mm.
were ready to be considered, that we could receive grants, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm kind of going on with this, but it really had to do with how I viewed myself as an entrepreneur and
Right.
in this space, and also with the power I thought I had,
Right.
which at first I just didn't feel very confident. And
Right.
so now, most recently, because I do feel much better now as I'm
Okay.
running my team and training people and building, I'm taking different approaches because I do want people to have more responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, I think it switches our position to be more like a coach, where
Yeah.
now instead of bossing people around, I want to really teach people how to do things. And so my mistakes have come around maybe from not having systems in place in the business
Mm-hmm.
to properly follow up with people, to properly check in, to facilitate online work among
Mm-hmm.
teams. That has been
Mm-hmm.
a huge challenge. And also in terms of our time, which
Mm-hmm.
is so precious. And what I've learned is that I had to let go, and I literally just had to trust people more that they could do work, even if we made mistakes together, and
Mm-hmm.
also acknowledging that I was making mistakes. So, clear examples will be me forgetting and missing meetings that
Yeah.
might have been important, and then not having things ready. And they were so small. Like, we have a big team meeting, but I wouldn't have everything ready. But why? Because I just didn't have systems in place.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was a huge shift we did, is switch towards developing systems in our
Mm-hmm.
business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're today. We're literally every day breaking down how are things being done. Can we document this? Can we systematize it so we can onboard people faster, so we can
Yeah.
expand it, so if we get a huge order, we can fulfill it, etc.
Yeah, I'm just like laughing because it resonates so much with me. And I imagine my team members who are watching probably know why this resonates. This has been like a big lesson for me for 2020, especially as we went from having kind of like one team member plus myself and my business partner to having two more, and the roles shifted. And yeah, definitely for me as well has turned into more. I far more enjoy the coaching role as well. And I feel like I think that everyone gets way more out of it, including myself. And I learn so much. I'm constantly saying we're learning together. And so like when mistakes are made, then it's not like, oh, it's your fault, your fault, your fault. It's the team, we are learning. And this was like a tough point in our journey, but what are we going to learn from it? And how can we document this? How do we create processes? It's been like so many spreadsheets in my life in the last couple months.
Yeah, but that was our greatest mistake. I just feel that there's this image, I swear, that we have to be that one key person or that
Yeah.
we have to deliver so much. I just can't imagine, like, again, because I've been even going into thinking, am I going to have a family? When am I going to have a
Yeah.
family? Like,
That's a tough one.
how can you do it when you have all that pressure on you? And
Yeah.
really, I feel that it comes from that individualistic way of thinking where
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
we just have to let that go. It
Yes.
takes a whole village to build a movement, to build something that's going to impact so many more people, because it's not just about us. And that's the key thing. When you
It
stop
shouldn't be.
thinking of,
That's the thing. Like if it's about you, then I don't think that it's going to have legs. It's not going to last if it's about you. It has to be able to outgrow you as a
yeah,
founder.
and that's the importance with systems as well, because if you build systems, you can create something that will just continue whether you're there or not. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where my perspective had to change, and where I had to decide, who is this for? Who is
Mm-hmm.
Nyoka for? Am I
Mm-hmm.
doing it for myself, for my children? Like, I mean, I love equity,
Mm-hmm.
but is this going to have the impact I want? No, I
Yeah.
have to let go.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. There's also, I haven't read this book yet, so don't quote me if this is a horrible book, and I'm sorry, but there's a book called The Replaceable Founder, and it's along these lines. And I need to still read it, but um, it's about getting to a point where you can leave the business and it's going to be okay because you put everything in place. I think this is such an important lesson to learn. So I thank you for bringing that up. So there's a couple of last questions I really want to ask you. One of them being, because you've done so many incredible things, people are in the chat talking about Nyoka is genius, is what I'm seeing here. It's credible. And you're doing amazing work, you and Paige and the team at Nyoka Design Labs. So how can we support you as your community? What can we do for you?
Thank you so much for that question. So I'll tell you something that we've struggled a lot with, and it's getting the word out the right way, in a way that
Okay.
we actually attract people who will support our communities and who would
Right.
also align with our values of that sustainability, of coming and working together, of that sharing of responsibility. And so, one of the greatest things is, could you go and follow us, but could you tell your friends? Word of
Yes.
mouth is
Okay.
huge for us.
Yep. Yes.
We do
Mm-hmm.
our social media ourselves. Even though our team is growing, we have a bigger research team than a marketing team, to be fair. Like, and so we constantly are finding ourselves in the position of, like, how do we share this with people, because there's so
Mm-hmm.
much going on. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
best way is even just coming and talking with us, but can you please share with us? The
Yes.
second part, and I'll tell you, because we are definitely expanding, I value connections. So I would love to connect with anybody who watches this and at any point resonates with the work we're doing, because I would love to create more connections in our network, but also in a way where I know maybe they will be benefiting from something we are doing. So we can also connect them to a project that we're leading.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could directly ask them, like, hey, can you connect us with this? And I can tell you more
Mm-hmm.
specifically, we're looking for connections that can help us um, access the humanitarian aid industry, also
Okay.
search and rescue, because we want to start testing our products in those areas.
Right.
So that's why we're more working with, we're aligning ourselves with the United Nations Global Compact.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to people in that area. And then also education, and more with educators, whether they're traditional or non-traditional educators, because right
Mm-hmm.
now we're building lesson kits and youth
Right.
STEM literacy kits, but that are
Cool.
featuring and highlighting the voices of more, I'm going to use the word, underrepresented communities in STEM.
Yep.
And so whether it's Black, Indigenous, people of color,
Mm-hmm.
immigrant communities, and we really are building a part of our site to be all about featuring those voices.
Yep.
And that's also a part of building community,
Yep.
where we want to highlight that. We want this to be a place of empowerment for so many others, especially for women. So, I mean, my huge ask is, can you reach out to us? Can we connect? I'm very much, I could have 10,000 followers on Instagram. I don't. But I want to know people. Like, I want to know people because I value those connections so much.
Amazing. And so how can people best connect with you?
Okay, with me, you can reach me out on Instagram. I literally, I check my messages, actually.
So do
And my
I.
Instagram is Yamila FRP, with a Y. So YAMILA
Amelia. Okay.
FRP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You'll find me tagged on the Nyoka
Yeah.
Instagram. If you message me on the Nyoka one, like, that's also great.
Okay.
because we'll be checking it. And those are two ways, or LinkedIn. I'd be more
Okay.
active on LinkedIn. I try to share when events are happening. So those are some ways over there.
Okay, perfect. So you heard it here. Go check out. And I saw that you're pretty much on every, like, Nyoka is on pretty much every social channel, it looks like. You're on,
Yes.
in a lot of places. So go and follow them, tell people about them, share the love, get in the community, engage. Go to lightbynyoka.com, check out their blog, share their articles, share their events, kind of share all the things, and then connect directly with Yamila to
Got it.
I'm getting there. um, to get to know each other better, especially do connections in the areas that she has mentioned. So that's fantastic. Thank you for that. And I know that we're out of time, and then there's so much more that I would love to ask. I do want to ask, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you really wanted to talk about?
No, this was all beautiful. I just want to say one of the reasons do I invite people to reach out to me is because if you're at any point looking to get into the industry, you're interested in social enterprises, clean tech. If you're, I also want to make it extremely clear, if you're a woman of color, Black, Indigenous, like my doors are always open.
Mm.
My doors are open to anyone, but more specifically, I do make time to support because there are not many women in this area. And I think that to really create those solutions that the world needs, everybody has to come together.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be even, I mean, if women were leading this, that's great. I'd be calling other genders in as well. It doesn't matter. I just feel we need to come all together.
Yeah.
And that's also why I want to make myself available is please reach out. And, maybe it's my connections, maybe are other ways, but I do like, because that's what has helped me as well.
Yeah.
Are people lending me a hand? Are people referring me, inviting me to come to things, or pushing me when I didn't want to? Like,
Yeah.
it was great.
I hear
That's
you.
the last thing. I'm
Okay.
so grateful. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. I have one last question. I always ask the same question as to end it off on, which is, what is one thing that brings you joy right now?
Right now, one thing that brings me joy, and this is weird, it's the rain. And the reason is because I love the sound of the rain. I don't know if you can hear it because it's
I can
raining.
hear it. Yes, yes, and I love it as well. I
I love
lived in
sleeping.
Madrid for a couple of years. I just moved to Ireland, but lived in Madrid, and we didn't get a lot of rain. And in the house we're in right now, we're cat sitting. There's a conservatory, and it's just like the sound of the rain on the conservatory roof is just like wonderful. It reminds me of Vancouver. I never thought I'd miss hearing the rain, but I love it. I love the sound of it. It's so calming to me.
Yeah, I love sleeping. That's one thing about fall. I mean, then it gets really cold, and I'm
Yeah,
just like,
that's not okay.
this doesn't work. Like, I just want to go back home. This doesn't
There's a
work.
window though where it's lovely.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, whoa, it's like in movies. Like, it's so cool. Because back home, it's tropical climate, right? So you either
Right.
have storm, then
Yeah.
sunlight, then storm. It's not really as calming and soothing as here. It's like crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Windy, stormy, then nothing. Here, it's like all rain. I can bike. It's great.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Well, it's bringing you joy. So hopefully you've been joyful during this interview because you can hear the rain. I love it. Cool. All right. So everyone, again, this is Yamila Franco with Nyoka Design Labs. So go check them out. It was a pleasure to get to know you better and to get to know Nyoka Design Labs as well better. I'm really keen to follow your journey. So make sure to keep us updated. We'll share on Volition. This chat will also be on IGTV in just a bit, and it will be on YouTube in just a bit. So make sure to come check that out as well and share it. And I'll be back here next Tuesday with our next founder chat. But otherwise, it was really great to see everyone. It was lovely to talk to you. And I thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Yeah. Well, bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.